Welcome, film buffs and fellow lovers of quirky cinema. In this video, we're unraveling 30 little-known facts about Popeye, 1980, the offbeat musical that transformed a beloved comic strip sailor into a live-action oddity. Ever wondered how Robin Williams's first feature film role took shape, or why the entire production team jetted off to Malta to build an entire village from scratch? Brace yourself, because we're diving headfirst into a behind-the-scenes swirl of runaway budgets, chaotic set antics, unexpected casting choices, and more. By the end, you might just see Popeye, 1980, in a completely different light, whether you grew up humming Harry Nilsson's tunes or never realized that someone seriously considered Dustin Hoffman for the role of a spinach-hating sailor. Let's dig into this fascinating slice of cinematic history. First live-action Popeye film, Popeye, 1980, took a huge creative swing by being the very first feature film to spotlight E.C. Segar's iconic thimble theater character in live action. Before that, Popeye had lived in the realm of comic strips, beginning in 1929, and animated shorts. So, stepping onto the big screen was like a brand-new universe for the squinty-eyed sailor. Even wilder, this project was a co-production between Paramount Pictures and Walt Disney Productions, a tag team that sounds almost too bold to be true. It was as if the two major studios momentarily shook hands to pull a salty cartoon character out of the panels and into the realm of flesh-and-blood cinema. At the time, fans wondered, can anyone really bring Popeye to life? Turns out, the result was as quirky and unpredictable as the character himself, leading some people to call it a misfire, but others to champion it as a cult favorite. It's a testament to that era's audacity that a major collaboration of two juggernaut studios said, "Yeah, let's build an entire town in Malta and see what happens." Robin Williams's film debut, hard to imagine, but there was once a time Robin Williams wasn't a household name. Popeye marks his first starring role in a feature film. Up until that point, folks knew him mostly from Mork and Mindy on TV, where he'd worn rainbow suspenders as an alien with a boundless comedic spark. Stepping into Popeye's oversized shoes and monstrous forearms, let Williams show off the sort of physical, freewheeling humor that would go on to define a large part of his career. He had to master Popeye's trademark squint, comedic mutterings, and weird vocal rhythms, often improvised or ad-libbed. Years later, it's both weird and wonderful to look back at this film and think, that's the same guy who'd later become an Oscar winner and star in everything from Good Morning, Vietnam to Mrs. Doubtfire. Popeye was no typical leading man introduction, but it was so on-brand for Williams's irreverent style that fans still study this film as a fascinating glimpse into the comedic genius he'd become. Shelley Duvall's perfect casting. Have you ever seen someone in a role so ideal you half suspect they were genetically engineered in a secret Hollywood lab? That's how people reacted to Shelley Duvall as Olive Oyl. Before filming Popeye, she'd just finished The Shining, in which she played the terrified, haunted Wendy Torrance opposite Jack Nicholson. Jumping from Stanley Kubrick's psychological horror to Robert Altman's comedic musical was like traveling between two distant planets. Yet the moment audiences set eyes on her elongated, spindly frame and heard her squeaky, tremulous voice crooning, "He's large," they agreed. Yep, that's Olive Oyl. Duvall's performance channeled both the comedic physical awkwardness and heartfelt sincerity that the character needed. Even E.C. Segar's ghost might have sat up somewhere in the afterlife and said, "Well, that's exactly how I pictured Olive Oyl in Flesh and Blood." Robert Altman's unusual choice. When your filmography includes Mass H. Nashville and McCabe and Mrs. Miller, maybe you're not the first director people think of for a family-friendly musical about a spinach-chomping sailor. Robert Altman was known for his overlapping dialogue, sweeping ensemble casts, and gritty realism. So, putting him in charge of Popeye was like handing the controls of a candy-colored carnival ride to a grizzled war movie director. But that was part of the wildness. Altman introduced a sense of chaos that divided critics. Some saw the film's swirling extras, free-form comedic bits, and meandering structure as messy. Others found it refreshingly earthy and brimming with a cartoon-come-to-life energy. The results are so uniquely Altman that it's impossible to imagine anyone else pulling off that same brand of chaotic joy. Even so, it was a gamble for both Paramount and Disney. Their conventional wisdom said, "Let's hire someone who can do a peppy, bright musical." But apparently the cosmic dice decided, "Nope, here's Robert Altman." Filmed in Malta. To create the ramshackle fishing village of Sweethaven, the production built an entire set in Anchor Bay, Malta. Imagine a remote cove transformed into a comic strip world. Construction was massive. They hammered together wooden houses with crooked angles, installed winding docks, and basically conjured up an entire living, breathing town. And guess what? It's still there. Popeye Village stands as a tourist attraction, complete with boat rides, a mini museum, and plenty of photo ops for fans. It's one of those bizarre relics of film history that you can actually visit, half expecting to see a costumed Popeye or Olive Oyl stroll past. Though the weather and logistic nightmares caused the production to go over budget and behind schedule, the legacy is that you can step into that cinematic dreamlike place decades later. If you ever find yourself in Malta, you can wander through Sweethaven's crooked streets and hum "He's Large" under your breath. Over-budget production. Originally pegged at around $20 million, the film's budget inflated faster than Bluto's temper, thanks to elaborate set builds, constant weather delays, and an extra 3 weeks of shooting. Even today, $20 million in 1980 was a hefty chunk of change, but by the time Altman's vision came to life, cost overruns made Popeye one of his priciest endeavors. The film industry loves to hype runaway budgets, and Popeye definitely joined that club. Each day in Malta added more zeros to the ledger, and execs back in Hollywood had to decide whether to keep funneling money or shut it down. They pressed on, partly because they'd already sunk so much into the set. Over budget, behind schedule, and rife with behind-the-scenes chaos, Popeye carried the stigma of a troubled production even before it hit theaters. Sometimes that can become part of the myth. Remember that crazy Popeye production fiasco in Malta? Indeed, even 40 years later, fans still chat about it. Jules Feiffer's script cartoonist and playwright Jules Feiffer penned the screenplay, wanting to honor the Thimble Theater comics more than the widely known Max Fleischer cartoons. That's a crucial point. Many viewers expected something akin to the Popeye they'd seen in black-and-white cartoon form, guzzling spinach in every short. But Feiffer delved deeper into E.C. Segar's original storyline, which included more comedic nuance, plus side characters and arcs not always spotlighted in the cartoons. This approach gave Popeye, 1980, a sense of authenticity for hardcore fans of Segar's old strips, but it also confused casual audiences who were used to the cartoon's straightforward formula of Popeye versus Bluto, punctuated by, "Well, blow me down." The screenplay's comedic dialogues and set pieces might seem meandering compared to typical 1980s family films, but Feiffer's love for the material bleeds through, for better or worse. Dustin Hoffman considered Imagine. Dustin Hoffman pumping his fists and squinting an eye, proclaiming, "I yam what I yam." That very scenario nearly happened in 1977. Producer Robert Evans initially wanted Hoffman for Popeye, Lily Tomlin for Olive Oil, and John Schlesinger directing. Hoffman eventually bailed out over creative disputes, opening the door for Robert Altman and Robin Williams. We'll never know how that alternative timeline might have shaped up, but it's fun to picture Hoffman's intense method approach to the comedic oddities of Popeye. Maybe we'd have gotten something equally intriguing, but less free-form. Still, the Robin Williams choice feels so iconic now that it's hard to think of the part belonging to anyone else. Gilda Radner, declined SNL legend. Gilda Radner was also in the running for Olive Oil. Her manager, Bernie Brillstein, advised her to steer clear, citing the script's uncertain quality and Altman's unpredictable reputation. You can see the logic. Radner was comedic gold, but a big, messy film production in Malta with a not-so-secure plan might have spelled trouble. By that time, Radner was on a career upswing and might not have wanted to risk an iffy project. Looking back, though, some fans wonder if her comedic brilliance could have meshed perfectly with Williams's improvisational style. Still, Shelley Duvall's performance was so legendary that Gilda's absence isn't necessarily a missed opportunity, just another what if in the swirling backstory of how Popeye got made. Harry Nilsson's soundtrack singer-songwriter Harry Nilsson penned the songs for Popeye, a choice almost as wild as having Altman direct. Nilsson was known for hits like Everybody's Talkin' and Without You, but here he wrote tunes such as I Am What I Am and He's Large that fit the film's offbeat vibe. Some critics found the music amateurish or too low-key, while others appreciated its charm and whimsy. Nilsson's style fused folksy narrative elements with comedic undertones, which matched the film's messy, earthy aesthetic. Even if the soundtrack isn't a chart-topping phenomenon, fans who love the movie find Nilsson's songs endearingly eccentric. You can practically hear a hint of the chaos that must have reigned on set in the music, like it's humming with the unpredictable spirit of the entire production. Disney-Paramount partnership. In an era when big studios typically guarded their brands like hawks, the Popeye co-production between Paramount and Disney was a rare instance of big-screen synergy. Disney oversaw international distribution via Buena Vista International, while Paramount managed North America. Why such a complicated arrangement? Partly because Paramount owned the Popeye cartoon rights, dating back to the Fleischer era, and Disney was hungry for new family-friendly live-action properties. The film's eventual performance might have made them regret the handshake, but at the time it was a two heads are better than one approach to a brand that once rivaled Mickey Mouse in popularity. Of course, when box office expectations fell short, each studio had reasons to shrug and blame the other. But historically, it's fascinating to see these two titans link arms for a single project. Sweet Haven's detail production designer Wolf Kroger deserves a round of applause for building Sweet Haven with such meticulous attention to old-timey, rickety detail. The houses stand at odd angles, wooden planks show signs of weathering, and everything looks slightly off-kilter, as if lifted directly from a cartoon panel. Roger Ebert lauded it as a rich set, remarking that the environment felt truly lived in. This attention to detail extended to small things like weathered signs, janky fences, and battered fishing boats anchored in the harbor. That authenticity invests viewers deeper in the story. Even if you think the plot is meandering, you can't deny the set design is so immersive that it begs for exploration in each frame. That's part of why Popeye Village remains such a tourist draw today. Who wouldn't want to wander around a real-life cartoon set? Circus performers cast to populate Sweet Haven with all those rubber-limbed, perpetually bickering townsfolk. Altman recruited many European circus performers. Their physical abilities added an animated flair, pratfalls, comedic tumbles, and exaggerated gaits that mimic the old Popeye cartoons. Sure, in a standard film you might cast background extras who blend in. But for Popeye, they wanted people who could fill the screen with curious, circus-like motion. This ensemble underscores the sense that Sweet Haven is a surreal, perpetually in-motion carnival of weirdness. It also let Altman stage broad comedic bits reminiscent of silent film antics. One moment, a performer might fling themselves over a barrel. The next, you see someone balancing precariously on a roof. The result? A living, breathing comic strip, courtesy of real acrobats. Williams's inaudible dialogue. If you watch Popeye closely, you'll notice that sometimes the sailor's mutterings are nearly impossible to catch. That's because after principal photography, the crew discovered that many of Robin Williams's on-set lines were barely audible over the chaos. Williams famously improvised a lot of Popeye's under-the-breath comments, channeling the character's iconic muttered commentary. In the final cut, much had to be redubbed in post-production. The comedic upside? We get a comedic patchwork of one-liners and random exclamations that feels exactly like Popeye's cartoon persona. The production fiasco side? Audio technicians spent hours trying to figure out which lines were salvageable and which needed a fresh take in the recording booth. But it kind of fits the film's overall vibe, messy, chaotic, yet oddly endearing. Prosthetic forearms. Trouble Popeye's physical silhouette is anchored by those comically huge forearms. For the film, they crafted silicone rubber arm prosthetics to approximate that bulge. However, these props proved to be a nightmare. They were cumbersome, tricky to remove, and occasionally caused discomfort or allergic reactions. 2 Italian artisans were flown to Malta to rework them mid-production. Imagine the tedium of wearing sweaty rubber arms under the Maltese sun for hours on end, while also trying to act, sing, and do stunts. Williams later joked about how unwieldy they felt. The comedic irony is that Popeye's arms in the cartoons look so natural, like, of course, he's got these giant arms. In reality, replicating that cartoonish anatomy was anything but simple or comfortable. Jack Mercer's cameo. Jack Mercer, the voice behind Popeye in many classic cartoons, recorded the opening animated sequence for the film. In it, Popeye quips that he's in the wrong movie, a self-referential wink from a legend of the franchise. Sadly, it would be Mercer's final performance, which lends that cameo a bittersweet significance. It's like a passing of the torch from the original cartoon voice to the new live-action star. For fans who grew up on Mercer's brassy voice, hearing him in the film was a nostalgic treat, bridging the gap between the old black-and-white reels and this vibrant real-world adaptation. Whether you love or hate the film, that cameo is a historical gem. Spinach twist. One of the oddities in Popeye, 1980, is that the iconic sailor hates spinach for most of the film. He doesn't fully embrace the leafy green until the climactic finale, where it helps him deliver that final knockout punch. This decision harks back to the original Thimble Theater strips, where Popeye's strength was initially attributed to the wiffle hen, not spinach. Only later did the cartoons immortalize spinach as his superpower. Some audiences felt robbed of the typical Popeye eats spinach and instantly gains super strength routine. Others found it refreshing. Hey, he's not just a stereotype, and we see him gradually overcome his dislike. Either way, it's an amusing departure from what most fans expected. Premiere timing, December 6, 1980, saw Popeye premiering at Mann's Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, just 2 days shy of what would have been E.C. Sagar's 86th birthday, December 8th. It's almost like the film gave a birthday salute to the man who invented the entire Popeye universe. Coincidence or cosmic alignment? Hard to say, but it's a nice bit of trivia that underscores how Popeye's cinematic moment was, in many ways, a tribute to Sagar's legacy. A star-studded Hollywood premiere at that iconic theater sounds glamorous, though behind the scenes, studio execs reportedly fretted about the film's tone, length, and commercial viability. Mixed critical reception critics were starkly divided. Roger Ebert awarded it 3.5 out of 4 stars, impressed by the creativity, the set design, and the offbeat charm. On the flip side, Leonard Maltin dismissed it as a bomb with an unfunny script. Over time, Popeyes gained a cult following, with fans celebrating it as a unique gem that dared to be different. If you read old reviews, you'll find descriptors like surreal, bloated, charming, and messy, all in the same paragraph. Today, many reappraisals highlight the film's artistry, comedic beats, and that intangible sense of a strange, magical environment. Sometimes, being weird pays off in the long run. Just ask any cult classic. Box office disappointment. The film grossed around $49.8 million domestically and $60 million worldwide. Given a $20 million budget, plus marketing costs, these numbers didn't meet the studio's lofty projections. Disney and Paramount both stamped it a mild flop, though by no means a catastrophic one. Adjusted for inflation, it recouped costs, but didn't soar to the stratosphere. At a time when musicals were risky, comedic fantasies not involving well-known Disney fairy tales faced an uphill battle. Home video and later cult status helped Popeye find new life. But back in 1980, the hype around Robin Williams's big-screen debut, combined with the popularity of the Popeye character, had led execs to expect more. They got a modest return, leaving them uncertain about whether this was a brand worth further cinematic investment. Shortened international cut. For international markets, Disney trimmed the film from 114 minutes down to about 92, hacking out some musical numbers and scenes to quicken the pace. This was a common practice then. Studios often assumed overseas audiences had less patience for longer musicals or comedic interludes. Some fans found the shorter version more palatable, while others missed the whimsical chaos of the extended cut. This difference in versions contributed to the film's varied reception. Some folks only ever saw the truncated version, which might feel more streamlined, but loses some of that over-the-top Altman flamboyance. Real-life inspiration Frank Rocky. Fiegel from Chester, Illinois, famously served as the real-life model for Popeye. He was said to be a pipe-smoking, quick-to-fight local brawler with an odd knack for beating bigger opponents. E.C. Segar based Popeye's face, attitude, and mannerisms on him. The tombstone at his grave acknowledges his Popeye connection, a testament to how everyday folks can become the blueprint for beloved fictional icons. This tidbit highlights the synergy between cartoonish exaggeration and real personalities. Popeye might be a comedic caricature, but there's real grit behind that spinach-fed muscle. Olive Oil's bassist Dora Pascal, also from Chester, Illinois, inspired Olive Oil. She was tall, slender, and apparently wore her hair in a tight bun, just like the cartoon character. Whenever fans question how E.C. Segar dreamed up such a bizarre design for Olive Oil, the answer is that he drew from people he observed in his hometown. The comedic extremes might be cartoonish, but they're anchored in real-world references. That's part of Popeye's charm as a strip. It's flamboyant, yet linked to small-town personalities. Sweet Pea's casting director Robert Altman chose his own grandson, Wesley Ivan Hurt, to play the infant Sweet Pea. Because, well, why not keep things in the family? The baby's wide-eyed expressions and occasional giggles or scowls gave the film some extra cuteness. Not many people realize that connection, but it's a prime example of Altman's quirkiness. Keep it personal, keep it weird, and hope the baby cooperates on camera. Considering the production chaos in Malta, a baby might have had the toughest job of all, looking adorable on demand amidst all that noise. Bluto's steam effect. One of the film's more cartoonish illusions is steam spurting from Bluto's ears when he's livid, a direct callback to the animated shorts. Accomplished with practical effects and a bit of smoky trickery, it was one of the few times the movie fully embraced that classic cartoon logic on screen. You can almost see kids in 1980 giggling hysterically at the sight, while older audiences might have rolled their eyes. Yet it's that kind of small detail that anchors the film to its cartoonish roots. Altman may have gone gritty in certain aspects, but when it came to capturing cartoon madness, he didn't hold back. Nilsson's song omission. Interestingly, the film's soundtrack album omitted "Everything is Food," one of the pivotal ensemble numbers, yet included "Din Wee," a tune cut from the theatrical version. Confused? So were fans. It was one of those weird marketing missteps that hamper a movie's synergy with merchandise. You'd watch the film, come out humming "Everything is Food," then buy the album and discover it's missing. Meanwhile, you'd stumble onto "Din Wee," a track never seen in the final edit. This kind of mismatch wasn't uncommon in the era, but it added to Popeye's overall aura of disorganized production decisions. Pfeiffer's script concerns. Despite being the script's author, Jules Pfeiffer later expressed dissatisfaction, feeling the final film gave too much screen time to minor characters at the expense of the main story. He also wasn't fully on board with Harry Nilsson's songs, believing they didn't always mesh with the comedic rhythms. This scenario exemplifies how film can be an amalgamation of competing visions. Pfeiffer had a certain comedic structure in mind, Altman had another. Nilsson had his musical approach. Mix them all together, add in studio pressure, and you get a film that some see as gloriously haphazard and others see as a missed opportunity for tighter storytelling. Altman's rowdy set Robin Williams dubbed the Malta shoot Stalag Altman, referencing the unpredictable environment. Feuds flared, props malfunctioned, weather refused to cooperate. Altman was famous for encouraging improvisation, so sometimes entire scenes would shift direction on the fly. For cast and crew, it was equal parts exhilarating and maddening. Looking at the final product, you can sense that swirling sense of mania. The vibe is less polished Hollywood musical and more holiday pantomime meets pirate circus. Some viewers adore that vibe, others can't stand it, but you can't deny it's a testament to Altman's carefree, subversive directorial style. Zasu Pitts' influence fans have noted that Olive Oil's flustered "oh my" exclamations and mannerisms echo the comedic style of 1930s actress Zasu Pitts. Whether this was explicitly planned by Shelley Duvall or not, the resemblance is uncanny. Pitts was known for her distressed expressions, wringing hands, and quavering voice, traits that Duvall channeled for Olive's comedic meltdown moments. This is the kind of cinematic Easter egg that older movie buffs get a kick out of. Popeye, 1980, was brimming with such micro-homages, from references to silent comedy pratfalls to nods at early 20th century comedic styles. Blu-ray release. In 2020, Paramount unveiled a 40th anniversary Blu-ray edition of Popeye with restored visuals and some bonus goodies. Fans rejoiced, seeing it as vindication that the film had finally graduated from odd relic to recognizable cult classic. Crisp resolution does wonders for appreciating the Sweet Haven set's craftsmanship, the subtle comedic expressions on Duvall's face, or the nuanced bits of Williams's performance. Many longtime devotees felt it was about time Popeye got some high-definition respect. The film's once controversial reputation has softened over the decades, morphing into that of a beloved oddity that new generations can discover in crystal-clear detail. That wraps up our tour of 30 little-known facts about Popeye, 1980. From Robert Altman's unconventional directing style to the wild budget overages in Malta, there's no denying this film's legacy is as colorful as Sweet Haven's ramshackle streets. If nothing else, Popeye proves that bold risks can birth cult classics, even if they baffled audiences and execs at first. Got a favorite Popeye memory or a surprising tidbit we missed? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more behind-the-scenes scoops on cinema's strangest and most wonderful creations. Until next time, happy watching, and remember, I yam what I yam.